afterwards. But yeah, this series is kind of going pretty quick. We're not messing about as the guys get into game 3, and it is going to be the druid versus the mage again from Tansoku. And I'm going to let you guys know when we were in the break, we had a little bit of a bet as to what classes would be in this next game, and I got it right. It was the druid from NaviOOT, which is the one I guessed. So pretty happy. Although NaviOOT might not be happy seeing the Malygos in the opening hand post mulligan. Not what he wants against a even more aggressive than normal tempo mage list.
Right, and this is the kind of tempo mage list that kind of it resembles the old tempo mage that used to give druid fits, right? It's just, you know, things like the fairy dragon, things like the spell slinger, just all of the recipe in there in order to just be annoying to druid. But I looked over the decks for a couple seconds there, and NaviOOT, he coin innervate out of Fandral. Yeah,
it seems like a pretty reasonable opening for druid. It's nothing too, nothing too surprising when you're against a druid deck for them to do silly things early on. But yeah, to your point about the way tempo mage versus druid used to play out, because it might seem, if you look sort of back in the day, it might seem strange that I thought NaviOOT was going to pick the druid and hoping he'd get the mage, but the matchup's very different. I think mirror entity is a big key, and also just the druid decks just being a bit different, but that's kind of just absolutely insane missiles. Tansoku there, he's not been the emotive one out of these two players. No. That was a smile and a nod going on for the arcane missiles.
That might be game deciding. NaviOOT had a Raven Idol and he picked up Living Roots. If that had lived, if he didn't go all 3 to Fandral, then he has just an insane turn this coming turn.
I feel like every time NaviOOT has a decision to make, which this is a game of Hearthstone, so fairly often, he looks like it's just a do or die decision. It's like he Raven Idols, he's got 3 okay options. Feral Rage feels like just the overall best pick in general, but it's just like head in hands, and he's like, oh my god, like this is a life or death decision here. And then
honestly,
it's kind of crazy to watch, to be honest. It's entertaining me greatly.
Honestly, I don't blame him after what just happened. He's like, all right, okay, hunker down. Okay, it's okay. We can still come back from this. We're druid. We can do druid things. It's fine. It's fine. Everything is fine. And so he's just sitting there thinking, okay, what is the best choice here? He picks up the Fatal Rage, which lines up perfectly with Spell Slinger, so ends up making the best choice. Obviously, still a little bit angry about what just happened, but he can maybe come back from this. Both players actually getting very useless spells off the Spell Slinger, so kind of an even trade there.
Yeah, that's actually pretty rough in general as bolster. There are no taunt minions in the druid, unless he Raven Idols into, say, Mark of the Wild, then will that buff? It doesn't, right? Because it's got to be a taunt keyword in general. This is something I've not tested.
Wait,
D2. What? If you play bolster on a minion that has taunt, but the minion doesn't originally have taunt.
Oh, it has taunt, so it's fine. Yeah,
it works. Yeah. Okay. I'm not the biggest bolster warrior player in the world, to be honest, D2. So you've taught me a lesson there. But NaviOOT, I will say one thing. NaviOOT got to an extremely good start, right, with the Fandral, and he could have had an even crazier continuation of that. But it also cost Tansoku a lot of his hand.
That's true, that is
so
true.
They were both on low cards, and at the end of the day, NaviOOT could still ramp with the wild growth. So they kind of just reset the board again and reset the game state, and now it's a more honest game, but the Spellslinger might change that. Healing Touch and a Powered Tentacles.
Yes. That is
Jinx.
a favorite card, yeah. My favorite card. Being from Japan,
Really? Oh.
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, wow. Wow, I'm not even going to respond to that, D2.
I went there.
This is not the time or place, but there is a giant available here for NaviOOT that he's hovering over.
You know what I didn't realize is that bolster can be used when you don't have any minions on the board or top minions. So he could actually have used that on a dead turn to make the Arcane Giant a little bit cheaper, potentially.
Yeah, it's better than a spell you can't cast. If you've got no uses for it, definitely. And see there, the Arcane Giant coming out for the full 6 mana. I say the full 6 mana. The full mana's turn.
Lots of mana, yeah.
Yeah, he had 6 mana this turn, so he uses full turn to get the Giant out, and it's still going to prove a bit of a problem. Tansoku definitely cannot ignore this.
Yeah, Tansoku, a couple of turns ago, he floated a mana, and he didn't play Sacred Trial. I feel like for the bluff value, it would have been good enough, because maybe NaviOOT doesn't play that into a potential Repentance, right?
Yeah, that's true.
What to do?
So
yeah, I guess though the idea is a lot of the time against Druid, they don't have a lot of options to play around Repentance, right? Like a lot of the time you just can't. You have Maya Keeper, and that's it, more or less. So I guess the idea is there's no point trying to bluff that, whereas Like now, now why you can just fit it in quite easily, it might be a little bit different and maybe just show a bit more of what it could be instead.
The thing is, he uses it now, and now he's kind of given away. If NaviOOT really thinks through this, then you can kind of rule out the repentance, right? Because why wouldn't you just use it before? Obviously,
could be noble sacrifice, so it forces him to hero power face when he doesn't want to.
Yeah, but at that point you're not really too worried about it. But he's going to use the hero power, going to get rid of a couple of them, at least eye for an eye, noble sacrifice. You see him kind of thinking about the possibilities there. But in any case, Tansoku is able to get rid of the Arcane Giant once and for all. Gets a Gurubashi Berserker for his troubles.
Ooh. That's actually kind of interesting.
Are we going to see some tentacles here?
Maybe. You definitely need to think about this Berserker.
Yeah, the thing is the Berserker, in the hands of the Mage, other than maybe Warrior, the Berserker, is best used by the Mage, so he can't just ping that off and get a value trade onto the Drake. So obviously NaviOOT has to think about that. Has potentially 10 mana to his name since he just picked up that Innervate. And so Tentacles plus Swipe works. Tentacles plus Hero Power kind of works.
You know what Tansoku could do as well with this Berserker? Arcane Blast, ping.
That is true.
How could say it? Can just go face. Just punch him in the face. But no, this is a pretty scary looking Azure Drake now. I always forget with Power Tentacles how much extra health you gain.
It's a lot of health.
It's always like, oh, well, it's only +2 attack, it's not that much, but +6. It's kind of nuts.
That's kind of like it looks like a fearsome Doomguard with spell damage to me.
Yeah, that's actually pretty huge, and there's no great way it can be dealt with at this turn, although Flamewaker could well help with double Arcane Blast as well. And if he really wants to, use Healing Touch.
Well, he can just go Drake double Arcane
Blast.
Blast
Of course,
well.
He's got Drake. I was so focused. I always just want to play Flamewaker, DT.
Me too, don't worry.
Flamewaker and then cheap spells to just repeatedly ping your opponent to death.
Yeah, we saw that in the first game of the first match of the day when an entire zoo board was cleared off by Flamewaker shenanigans.
Yeah, it's actually so sick. Arcane Blast is insane. Just get spell damage minion on it, just does ridiculous sums of damage. But another spell damage minion that's a little bit bigger, Malygos, and NaviOOT was so close to dropping it on the board.
I just love, by the way, a couple turns ago, or a turn ago, when NaviOOT, he cleared off the Berserker and the Drake, and then you saw him like muttering to himself, WTF is that secret? He's like, what is going on here? Oh, okay. But yeah, I think we might have your wish granted here, as Tansoku has the ability to just kind of go face here with Flamewaker shenanigans.
I wonder. I mean, he's seen a swipe, right? So
yeah, he has
two Fairy Dragons look pretty nice, to be honest.
Yeah, the thing is, he could just go Flamewaker, Fireball Face, and Fairy Dragon. There's a few things he could do here. But the one thing I'm almost certain he's not going to do is take care of this It's just hard for him to win the game if he takes care of it, right?
Oh, it looks like he's going for it, though.
Okay.
He might genuinely be afraid that NaviOOT can just kill him.
That is true, but I feel like something like Moonfire or Living Root would have been used already just to take care of the Drake. And this is the thing, though, and this is what I wanted to talk about as far as all these players, because a lot of these players haven't played in these high-pressure situations before, right? NaviOOT is kind of the second most experienced out of all of these players, just getting to the APAC Winter Championships. And so maybe Tansoku, a lot of the time, he would have played more aggressive if he's playing like an open cup in this situation.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider, that there's a lot on the line here, and Tansoku actually just loads up with a second Fireball this turn, and now he can do his Flamewaker Fireball if he really wants, and he might well go for it. It would keep in line for him to actually just clear the Azure Drake if he really wanted, and then he can still play the Fairy Dragon. So
the thing is, this is why I was advocating for it before, but it looks like he's staying consistent at the very least. Gonna go ahead and clear off the Drake and just try to kill off with minion damage.
Yeah, and then we see these Fairy Dragons, they're actually just very difficult to remove. There's just not a lot the Druid can do about it now, and they're going to start really piling on the pressure. Obviously, Tansoku has got the Healing Touch in hand, but NaviOOT knows that could be anything, any spell.
At this point, NaviOOT probably thinks it's a dead card, right? Because, why would you hold that in your hand the entire time? But yeah, NaviOOT's just going to go ahead and clear off this Flamewaker. He was really hoping for a swipe there, does not get it. But at least, he's kind of healthy, right? And he's seen 2 Fireballs. He's seen a Frostbolt. He's seen a Firelands Portal. He's kind of far off from dying, to be honest.
Yeah, the Frostbolt coming into Tansoku's hand, though. Plus, there's still potential of a Ragnaros, and there's 2 Firelands in this deck, and we've only seen 1 so far. So there is enough burn just in the deck alone to get the job done, even without the minions. But again, this could be might well see the Frostbolt get used to actually just defend these fairy dragons at this point.
I feel like Tansoku just has to go face. Imagine if he had just gone face with both of those fireballs. One of them would have been 7, the other would have been 6 because his fairy dragon would have died, or excuse me, his Drake would have died. But he would have gotten the extra 4 damage as well. So we could have potentially seen NaviOOT 17 lower, which actually would have been lethal.
Yeah, the problem is though that's when you start getting into the what if scenarios. Whereas, you know, if you left Malygos up, he could have just died.
Yeah.
Which is definitely something to be afraid. And a lot of the time, it's very difficult if you have such a clean kill on a Malygos to just not do it, because it is one of the win conditions of the Druid deck. So I don't mind the removal of the Malygos too much. He has plenty left in the deck. Ragnaros has got the Yogg as well for his sort of end game, and you know, NaviOOT is on 10, but that's another nourish coming down.
I think this is the beginning of the end. I think this is why Tansoku needed to kill him as quickly as possible, because you know, you're playing around damage spells there, but you're not playing around things like Feral Rage and Moonglade Portal once you start clearing the board, because you're never going to win the long game, I feel like, when you're going off against this Druid.
Yeah, and the problem is with the Druid having so much card draw, this is kind of just insane. Like, no matter what position you're in, unless you literally have lethal the following turn, when a Druid's got this many cards and you've got 1, and it's a healing touch, it's definitely not a great position. Sacred Trial not doing anything whatsoever in this matchup overall. Even going for the Feral Rage now just to armor up past any kind of craziness that may happen next turn. And now, like you said, Moonglade, Ragnaros, he's got all the removal he could want, because now that Malygos is gone, he can use the Moonfire roots to actually just as removal tools, as opposed to banking them for the big Malygos turn later on.
The funny thing for NaviOOT here is the only way he can kill this Fairy Dragon right now is with Rag. Because he's expanded everything else. He doesn't really want to use Feral Rage on it, obviously.
Yeah, you can't even live in roots to the tokens, because one will get pinged.
Yeah, exactly.
So he has to like hope one survives, then hero power it down the following turn, still take an additional 3.
How much damage have these Fairy Dragons done? I suppose that's one of the downsides of my argument earlier, right? Is these Fairy Dragons have done so much damage.
Yeah, they just can't be dealt with.
Yeah, so that is obviously the other side of my argument earlier. And Navi looks like he's just going to clear off one of these minions, clear off the Mana Worm to be precise.
The only one he can clear off with the
yeah,
Wrath.
true. Look, NaviOOT is really stressing about this. He really wants it to kill the Fairy Dragon, and he is not happy that it hit the face.
This Fairy Dragon's swiftly becoming a grizzled veteran of the battlefield. He's just adding up that amount of damage he's been doing this whole game. It's kind of nuts. Healing Touch is going to be played now because, frankly, why not?
Well, I think there is a reason why not, because NaviOOT, he thought that might have been something like Pyroblast, because that would be one of the spells that Tansoku wouldn't be able to play this entire time, you know, save it for the very end. And I think that's what NaviOOT was worried about. You saw him, he was really stressed about the Rag hitting the Fairy Dragon. We knew, as he does get something that will kill off one of these minions, which is kind of nice.
I like though he's laughing though. He's like, okay, Void Crusher, damn you. It's like literally saying you cannot hero power because
right, that's true.
Because NaviOOT's minions, although this Fairy Dragon has been pretty much an MVP, NaviOOT's minions are way more important to him than Tansoku's are, and as you can see on the screen there, the Inspire.
Does the Mire Keeper or the Slime die? The Mire Keeper dies. Okay. That's what I thought. Anyway, sorry, we had a Sacred Trial moment. I had to point it out.
No. By all means. Never know what these crazy secrets may do, especially the lesser played ones.
All right. Well, I think NaviOOT's got this unless there's a Yogg off the top, no matter where this hits.
This Fairy Dragon is just a boss.
That's still going to be it, though. I don't see how Tansoku... He might play one more turn just to maybe get Yogg off the top, especially because NaviOOT's used most of his burn. He's not that likely to die, I should say. So...
NaviOOT might be pushed to the extent getting with this Fairy Dragon that he's going to, as long as he doesn't die, just keep passing the turn to try and get this kill on this Fairy Dragon. Just hopefully minions survive to trade into it. He'll finally kill it off. There we go. You're a hero. You get like a medal given to you afterwards, Fairy Dragon. You did a good job.
And by the way, Tansoku knows that this is, less than 1% territory here, but he just wants to get a miracle from Yogg at this point. He is running Yogg in the deck, so that's basically his last out. I feel like if he doesn't pick it up this turn, it's going to be a concede from him.
Yep, he will die in the following turn, more than likely, unless there is some kind of Yogg shenanigans coming down. And you know what? I don't blame him at all. This is such an important tournament. It's the last chance to get into BlizzCon. Why not play the game out until you know 100% the game is over? Mirror image not going to be enough with 2 minions already on the board that can claim